Hi everybody, I'm David with Bolivar Live and welcome to another Bolivar Live Did You Know? Once again, we're here at the Bolivar Lighthouse with Mr. Lloyd Maxwell. And we introduced and got a picture in the first Bolivar Live a week or so ago. Today we're going to talk more on the Texas City explosion and what it did. Mr. Maxwell's from Devers. They had a place down here, and so they know what happened whether you're 70 miles away or 8 miles away. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that this morning and give you an in-depth view of just how powerful the Texas City explosion was. Mr. Maxwell, Lloyd, you told me to call you.
Please.
Thank you for joining us again. After we were done last week with the Bolivar Live, you said something about the strength of the explosion. You talked about an anchor. You talked about a friend of yours' parents being killed and you being in Devers. Give us an in-depth view on what it was really like when not only the first ship went, but when the second ship went, where you were and what you know about the facts on what it did.
The first thing that I knew or found out about Texas City when it was on the radio that there was a major explosion at Texas City.
And were you in Devers at the time?
We were in Devers.
Okay.
And we saw a huge smoke ball up in that must have been 10 miles high. It looked like a thunderstorm.
Uh-huh.
And the first time it exploded, we didn't necessarily hear the racket. The second explosion is one that was so powerful it broke the windows in the Devers School building. I was in the second grade then, but it broke the windows in the Devers School building, plus a lot of the buildings, the houses in our area. And the next day after the explosion, we live about 200 yards or 300 yards off of the highway in Devers, Highway 90. The next day, military ambulances and fire trucks started coming from the east, from, I guess, Fort Polk or wherever. But they came by for 2 or 3 days heading to Texas City because you had to go to Devers to go to Baytown, then to get to Texas City to help fight the fires. And we have a good friend that played football with my brother, and his name was Joe Blackman. And his folks were working, his dad was working at the refinery in Texas City. And the first explosion, his dad went over and got his mama and Joe, and they started driving out of town. And they got, about a mile and a half is what I understand, from the scene. And when the Grand Camp blew up, a piece of the sheet metal off of the sides of the ship was blown over and went through the roof of their car and killed his parents. And it burned him severely on his back.
I remember you talking about when you were playing football or something, you saw the burns on his back. And
my brother David was talking about it, yes.
Yeah.
But Joe was burned severely. But the thing was so strong, as I said before, it burned all the paint off the sides of our houses. And we're a good 8 miles from Texas City.
Right.
And there were either 1 or 2 aircraft that were taking pictures, and I know one of them was blown out of the sky there.
Really?
But the Grand Camp, that explosion was so huge that I read a report and I've heard them talk about the anchor of the Grand Camp ship weighed 2 tons. And the blast blew that anchor 1.5 miles away from the ship.
The ship.
Yeah.
What did it do to Galveston? You had said when we were down here for the Lighthouse National Day, said you had friends in Galveston. Do you know what it did in Galveston?
No, all I know is Corbett Johnson. Her dad was Justice of Peace here at Bolivar. And Corbett Johnson's a dear friend of ours. She told us that she and her sisters and brother, little Andrew was her brother, and they went to school in Ball High. So they were living on S Street in Galveston. And when the thing blew up, she said the next morning they went out and checked around in the yard and the street, and there were big blobs of tar and grease all over the streets in the area over yonder from the Texas City explosion.
From the explosion. What did it do to any cattle? Did y'all have any cattle down here at that time?
No.
Okay.
No, we didn't.
So it didn't hamper any of that. What about lives over here or families that you knew over here? Do you know if it hurt them or how they fared from it?
Dave, I was only 7 years old at that time, and I really don't know how it affected them, but it was very clear what happened here.
Right.
And that's the main thing that impacted us. But the lighthouse got quite a bit of damage on the inside.
Yeah, you said knocked bricks out and
right,
stuff
it knocked a lot
like
of the
that.
mortar out and everything. That was a horrible explosion.
Yeah, and I think the anniversary, this year they did something I was watching on TV, talked about it, and I can't believe how big it was and how many people it affected, how far away. You said you were 70 miles away in Devers,
Right.
and it blew windows out, and you were in your school and stuff. And so, well, thanks for joining us today. I know our next shows we're going to be talking about cattle drives. And you know, even today, you can drive down Highway 124 and get caught in a cattle drive. And what's funny is people complain about it. Man, you're in Texas. If you don't like a good old cattle drive coming down 124, maybe you ought to go to New York. Until next time, I'm David with Bolivar Live. Y'all have a great day, great week. Come see us. God bless, and bye-bye.